Dell is here again to explain the markets on Connected Farmer, your channel to keep you up to date with the latest trends in agriculture and livestock. Stay tuned and don't forget to subscribe. Hello, Jerry. We are eager to hear your explanations about the markets today and the wheat. Starting by wheat has gone down after some rallies.
Yeah, this weekend wheat definitely on the short side of the stick, as they say. From there, the there's some reports about Ukraine getting some jumps in their plantings and things like that. Now, to some extent, the wheat that they're selling is going to be stuff they've already had in the ground from last fall, and that. But in general, that was it. And also, there's been various ideas and comments about some of the rail shipments finally getting to the border of Moldova. And then today they had to talk about a shipment of corn, actually, of all things, that got out of Romania on a 71,000 ton metric ton vessel there. So, that's somewhat of a psychological positive. Some of the people talking about 6 districts out of their 24 being planted. The biggest problem is that the total number of acres here, somewhere between 3 and maybe 4 million 3 or 4 million hectares, I should say, of maybe out of 14. That's still we're barely getting to 30-35% on their plantings at this point. So definitely need some better progress on some plantings there for all their spring crops in that part of the world. And then probably the biggest factor that pressured things today was the fact that all week we've been talking about a potential rain event happening from maybe Nebraska up towards North Dakota. And now the secondary weather event that was kind of projected for Monday and Tuesday. Now they're talking about that a particular rain event to be moving into potentially Kansas and maybe all the way down to Oklahoma. So I think that was part of the reason why the wheat was on the defensive, but corn was a different story.
Yeah, so with corn for you, what's the main reason for the rally?
Well, I think actually the surprising thing about it is that I think more and more people are getting nervous about the fact that we haven't got much planning done. We last week the idea was 10 to 13%, and we barely got 7 to 8% noted here on this Monday update, and that. And then we've had some more cool temperatures this week, and now we're getting some rains going through. I know there were some people out there making some plannings ahead of this rain event that started yesterday and today here in the Western Corn Belt. But same time, you know, the wet conditions in the eastern part of the Corn Belt, and in the cool temperatures really has kept a lot of planters in the shed, as they say. From there, so the corn has been kind of slowly ratcheting up this week. And actually, we're up here at historically high levels for the month of April. I think this is the highest close that we've ever had in the month of April for corn. And it's really under the uncertainty that our yield capability for the coming year could be a little subject at this point. I think the USDA is still going to hang in there with their so-called trend yield of 181. I think that's really a bogus yield in my opinion, but they're going to stay with it. But at the same time, I think a lot of people are anticipating staring at last year's 177 and say, can I say I've got a guarantee of that coming? And I think there's a lot of people feeling the same way, that might not be there, because the longer you wait to get your corn in the ground, you have less time for it to develop. And you also put the corn market or the corn pollination in the US into maybe its hottest temperature capabilities there in the mid to late July period. If you can get that pollination period earlier than that, and that similar situation in Mato Grosso here, if you get the pollination before the monsoonal rains start retreating, that's highly important about what your yields are going to be at the end of the year.
Yeah, so I think the market has priced a lower crop in Brazil, and but has ignored the lower numbers in the U.S. economy. Don't you think so?
Oh, I agree that the well the attitude about Brazil right now is it came in with kind of a real positive attitude. We're going to have more acres and that kind of stuff, but I think there's a kind of a widening attitude here that maybe this monsoonal situation on rainfall that's really, if you're talking many areas of Mato Grosso, they're into the 20 to 30-40% situation. And there's been some areas have been longer than in the month of April than that. And so it's a situation where that market, people are getting more concerned about what the size of the corn crop in there, and that's a major factor in here because they provide a huge amount of corn to the world, starting really late July through early October, in that before the U.S. harvest really kind of gets going, and we get our systems kind of going for our exports in late fall and winter time. So I think that's a feature out there, and on the well, I think that's really the kind of the surprise factor, or not really surprise factor, the reason for the support this week in the corn market comparison to beans and wheat, particularly here at this point.
Yes, and soybeans, so we are seeing an expected higher demand for crushing. And how do you think that is playing out in the markets?
Well, it's kind of an interesting scenario. Everybody's really attuned to what's going on in the world of veg oils, because earlier this week there was reports out that actually two or three different reports actually over 2 or 3 different days here. Indonesia, who is really the world's largest producer of palm oil these days. I know Malaysia's got the reputation of it, but it doesn't have enough area to be the largest anymore. And so their ag minister first said that he was going to ban ethanol, or excuse me, palm oil exports. And then he said, no, next day we're only doing that for palm oil, which is their kind of refined version of it. And then they said, yes, we're going to. But then even late in the week here, there was commentary from him saying, well, it's potentially only going to be for through the month of May, and we'll be back exporting things after that. It seems that there is some issues in the internal domestic markets that they hope they can calm down. But the issue in this whole thing is in the background of this around the world has been the new enthusiasm to utilize veg oils as a green fuel here in diesel fuel. And renewable diesel continues to be a heartthrob in the back of these markets all along here, because there's lots of people talking about it. And there was even a new plan announced this week being potentially going to be started here. I think it was in Nevada, but it could have been California. But both of them, that's a hotbed of where these renewable diesel plants. And basically, what you're doing is taking just a minor adjustment to veg oils and virtually kind of burning it directly in diesel trucks, and that's high powered. That takes a lot of fuel to get that type of thing done. But on the soybean side here, specifically, with delayed or very slow plantings, because this week we only had like I think 3% nationwide on beans, and also I think 7 or 8, as I said before, on corn. Right now, the expectations is that Monday's numbers on both these are still going to be behind normal, because normal at this point was like 15% on corn, and we're talking about 7 or 8% on soybeans. Maybe not as far behind on beans, but the interesting thing is that if you don't plant corn and that as fast as you want, that usually puts more soybean acres into the mix. And right now, we've already anticipated we're having more soybeans being planted according to the producers out there. And we really probably need more corn acres being planted. The 89 million is going to make things very, very interesting and tight as we go into the 2022-23 year.
Yes, and what else do you expect to see on Monday?
Well, that's right. You kind of set me up in this, and I got off, ran off somewhere else as I do these things. It ends up Monday. We do have our update on our March update on U.S. soybean crush. Looks like another record coming out here for 193 million. Is kind of the split of the average between the two wire services out there. Soybean oil also was anticipated to be a little bit lower for the first time in the previous month, around 22.5 million pounds on that one. And even ethanol at this point is going to be running at a pretty hefty pace. March's output on the U.S. Plants were very strong during March. And that kind of ran at the same pace as was in February. The one thing that's kind of been a stick in the mud, if you want to say that, in the ethanol world is the fact that their ethanol plants, which are spread out really across the Western Corn Belt here, primarily Iowa, Nebraska, South Dakota, Minnesota, and that they really depend on the U.S. Railroad system to move their ethanol into places around the country here to blend into the fuel supply. There's not really a dedicated, pipeline like there is for oil to send it down. There's only one of them that goes into the Southeast at this point. From that standpoint, the issues about some of our supply chain problems, some of the train personnel have been shrunk over the last 2 or 3 years here so that right now some of the problems we had on the West Coast here, back in the fall and early winter, seems like some of those same issues are now starting to spread out across the U.S. on the railroad systems and so that's prompting some of these ethanol plants to actually slow down or not put in batches of ethanol, because the fact that they've got ethanol wanting to be shipped out and sitting on their siding, and no train comes by to pick up the cars. So that's really been a subtlety here in the month of April. So it's interesting in the fact that nobody's running out in the retail world at this point, but it's pretty impressive or important that we start to get this thing kind of worked out here as we go forward, because the U.S. driving season is just upon us here, May through September, and we probably need to get more and more of this ethanol in position for blending.
All right, Mr. Jerry Goodell, thank you again for your time.
Well, I hope so. And next week's going to be a tricky one because we have those USDA things coming out here in the month of May. But right now, the weather in the U.S. And how we progress along in our plantings and what kind of weather impacts the South American crops, and primarily Mato Grosso here, is going to be the two focus, it looks like.
We will watch closely.
Have a good day.